Hey all! In today's tutorial, we'll be making a checkbox component and we'll be adding a small animation to it. So it's going to be bouncy like this. So to get started, all you need is an empty Figma file, and I recommend you have some color styles for different grays, kind of like for the text, for the border, and then maybe some greens or blues for showing the selected state. So here in my empty Figma file, I just have like 9 colors for my grays and 9 for greens. So to get started, I'm going to create a label, and I'll just call it checkbox label. And I'll make it much bigger, maybe 18 pixels, and we can make it medium. And I'll right away change the color to the darkest gray. Then the next thing that we'll want to grab is some sort of check icon. So I'm going to go and get one from Phosphor Icons. And maybe I'll choose the bold option, and I'll copy the SVG and place it in here. And I'm actually going to take it out of this frame and remove the outer part. And then we'll want to scale it down maybe to 24 pixel wide. So from here, I'm going to wrap it inside auto layout frame, and I'll set the width and the height to fixed. And we don't need any padding. And we just want to make sure that it's centered. And let's give it a fill of white. We will also add a 4 pixel border radius, and we'll give it a stroke, 1 pixel of gray 400. Next, I'm going to change the width to 4. And also this first state is just going to be our unchecked, unpressed state. So I made the check icon white as well. So next, I'm going to combine these 2 layers together in auto layout, and I'll set the spacing in between to 12. And this essentially is our first state. So next, I'm going to make a copy. And this next instance is just going to be the press state. And the only difference here is going to be we will add a shadow to this checkbox container. So I'm going to select it and go to the effects and do the drop shadow. And we'll update the blur to 10, keep this at 4, and make the actual color like maybe lighter gray. So this is our press state, and after we finish all of our states, we will connect them together with prototype links. The next state is going to be mouse up, like the moment you release the mouse. So at this point, we're going to have a fill, and let's do the fill of like 500, and then I'll just need to make sure to update the stroke as well. And at this point, we want the check icon itself to be slightly bigger, slightly wider than its final state. So we're going to scale it maybe to 28 pixels wide. And again, we just want to make sure that we maintain the 4 pixel border width. So actually, one thing I'm going to do is select all of these checkboxes, and I'll just give them the same name, checkbox. And then another thing, just to make it clear for ourselves as we add more states, it could be helpful to just have small notes next to our states to reference to. So this for our state is going to be unchecked and default. I'll just make this smaller. And we'll get rid of this stuff later on. But this one is unchecked, pressed. This one is unchecked, mouse up. And then our next one, we're just going to have the checked default. So this one is going to be checked and default. And the only difference here is that we do want to just scale it back down to 24 and make sure it's still 4 pixel wide. And then our next one, if we wanted to uncheck the checkbox, then it's going to be checked and pressed. And so when it's pressed, all we're going to do is make it slightly darker. So I'll update it to green 600. And we also want to make it feel like we're pressing on the checkbox. So we'll make the size of the check mark maybe smaller, like 20 pixel. And again, just make sure that you update the width if you need to. And then our very last state is going to be unchecked and mouse up. And for this one, we're going to update the stroke back to 400. And then the fill is going to go back to white. And then the state after this one, we're actually going to complete the loop and return all the way back to our unchecked default. From here, we can start adding our prototype connections. So I'm going to go over to the prototype tab, and our first one is going to go from unchecked default state to unchecked press state. So it's going to happen while pressing, and then we're going to change it to smart animate. And we want to change the function to is in and out, and we want it to be relatively quick, so maybe around 40 milliseconds. And now let me just update our background prototype color to match the canvas, and we're going to see what we currently have. It's probably barely visible, but the moment I press on it, you can kind of see that the shadow appears, and the moment I release, it goes away. So our next connection is going to be from the pressing state to mouse up, like the moment you release the mouse. For this one, we will do mouse up. We'll just change it to is in, and we'll update it to 100 milliseconds. So let's return back here. The moment I press on it, there is a slight shadow, and then I release, and the check mark appears. But then we do want to go to our default state. So we want to have our checkbox to appear slightly bigger the moment we release the mouse, but we don't want it to remain as big. We want it to go to its default state. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a link from mouse up state to the default checked. And this one is going to happen almost instantly. So we'll set it after delay. And we can't make it like 0 milliseconds, so we'll need to add 1, but the key is that it happens really, really fast. We want to keep it at smart animate. And at this point, this is like the most fun part of the tutorial, because now we get to choose which function we want, which easing we want for that like animation the moment you check the checkbox. So you can keep it relatively plain and kind of calm, or you can make it like really bouncy. And it really depends on your preference, on the kind of app you have. Probably if you have like a long form with lots of checkboxes, maybe like tons of bouncy checkboxes would be overwhelming and kind of annoying. But if you have just a couple, it's fun to add something fun. As an example, let's just leave it like this. And I'm going to return to our prototype and just see what it looks like. It's definitely not boring. It's not just being suddenly checked. There is a little bounce to it, but let's see what else we could do. So I'm going to return here, and I'll change I'll change to one of their presets function. I'll choose the bouncy one. And yeah, let's go back and let's just see what it looks like. So this one is maybe slightly too bouncy. And the fun thing is that even after you set one of the presets function, if you go to custom spring, it's going to preserve that preset and you can play with it right away. So maybe one thing that I would want to do is increase the damping to like 20. So it's bouncy, but not super bouncy. And let's go back. So yeah, now it just happens slightly faster. There is still a bounce, but it doesn't like wave as much. Now we're going to complete our links. From our checked default one, we're going to do essentially the same function that we did at the beginning here. We're going to do it while pressing. We'll keep it as smart animate. We don't want the custom spring. We'll do is in and out. And that will be 40 milliseconds. And by the way, all of these ones are more or less just plain and personal preference. Definitely feel free to play with easing functions and with the time it takes. And then from here, we're going to do, I think, just is in and 100 milliseconds. And then again, we'll add a delay to go all the way back to our first state. And again, it's very sudden, so just 1 millisecond, and we'll do 40 milliseconds here. Okay, so let's return. So we press, then the check mark appears, and then we press again, and it goes away. And what we'd want to do now is to turn it into an actual component. So I'm going to return to our design tab, select all of these, rename them to checkbox, and then we'll create a component set, and we'll have a couple properties. So our first property is going to be checked, and these ones are going to be not checked, so no, and these ones are going to be yes. And then our second property is going to be state. So we'll have 2 default states, and then we'll have 2 press states, and then we'll have 2 mouse up states. And a couple more things that we can do is first one for the checkbox label. We may want to have it optional. So I'll go to the layer section here, and then we'll do like show label, and we'll keep it true by default. And then another thing that you can do, so currently if I have an instance of the checkbox, if I wanted to update the text, I need to click into it and update it from here, like new label. But the thing that you could actually do is add it as a text property for your instance component. So you would be able to do it from the controls here. To do that, you're going to select and you're going to go to the content section here. We'll just call it label. Create property. Now, when I have an instance of the component selected, I can just change it right from here. So maybe you find this useful. Personally, I still find myself just clicking into the layers and changing it from the instance on the canvas, but maybe you'll find it useful to do it from the property panel. And lastly, a good thing is that if for some reason you did not have the label, let's say we turn it off, then you don't have the text input box here to update the text. The very last thing, something that I like to do with my main components is if I have a bunch of different variants, just add auto layout to them just so that there is nice even padding all around and maybe the same distance between the items. And then you can definitely either keep this stuff if you find it helpful to reference, or you can just remove it. It's totally up to you. So that's it. That's the tutorial for the interactive checkbox. I'll add this demo file in the description, and please let me know if you have any questions or any other suggestions for tutorials. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.